My name is Ethan Cole, and for most of my life, I believed people like you were living in a dream. I taught philosophy at a small college in Oregon, trained minds to question everything, even existence itself, and especially the idea of God. Religion, to me, was a relic of the past, a crutch for the weak, a myth that gave people false hope in a chaotic world. I never hated people of faith, but I pitied them. I truly did. I thought they were wasting their lives chasing fairy tales, while I lived in truth, grounded in reason. For over 30 years, I lectured in crowded halls, debated students who brought up God, and I always won. Not because I was smarter, but because I believed facts were enough. We are just atoms colliding in space. No grand purpose, no divine plan, just chance and chaos. That's what I taught, and that's what I lived. So when I was invited to Northeast India for a research project on belief systems in tribal societies, I saw it as a professional adventure, not a spiritual one. It was meant to be a study of culture, how ancient superstitions dissolve under the weight of modern science. That was the story I was writing. I spent 6 weeks in the hills of Nagaland, where churches outnumbered bars, where hymns echoed from mountaintops, and Bible verses were painted on brick walls like graffiti. I took pictures. I interviewed pastor. I smiled politely at prayer meetings, but in my heart, I was observing, not participating. I remember thinking, even here, faith still survives. How fascinating, how tragic. By the end of my trip, I had compiled everything. Digital notes, recordings, observations, and I was proud of the work, proud that I had once again stayed above it all. I booked my return flight to London on Air India 171, a direct flight from Ahmedabad, scheduled for the 12th of June, precisely 13:39 p.m. I laid out every connection, every train ride, every buffer minute, with surgical precision. It was a masterpiece of planning. That's who I was, a man who didn't leave room for miracles, because I didn't believe they existed, until the morning of the 10th of June, when a single interruption shattered everything. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been so certain about how your life works, only for one small moment to break the entire structure? If something like that has ever happened to you, let me know in the comments. Was it coincidence, or was it something more? And if you find yourself curious about where this story goes, hit subscribe, because the truth isn't always what we expect, and sometimes it finds us when we're not even looking. The 10th of June began like any other travel day for me. Precise, timed, logical. I had a checklist. Wake up at 5. Check out by 5. Sishawu. Taxi to the station by 6. Board the 6:15 train to Pras Junction. Everything was mapped out down to the minute. I didn't believe in signs, only systems. He trusted structure, not fate. And that morning I felt completely in control. But when I called the front desk to collect my dry clean suit, the delay began. A soft knock on the door came at 5. Sisher. I opened it to find a young woman in a simple sari holding my freshly pressed clothes. She looked no older than 23. Her name tag read Grace. She smiled politely and stepped inside. But I noticed something strange. From the pocket of her apron came a voice, in English but with a thick accent. It said, "Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is calling you now." I froze, frowned. "Excuse me, could you turn that off?" She reached into her pocket, lowered the volume slightly but didn't stop it completely. Isayad. Unbelievable. She caught my gaze and said softly, "It's just Pastor Reinhardt. He shares a morning message each day." "Pastor who?" I muttered, irritated. "Never mind. Do you actually believe that stuff? That some man in the sky is watching you?" She looked at me calmly, her voice steady. "The fool says in his heart, there is no God." He blinked, surprised by her boldness. Psalm 14. I asked if she was serious. She nodded. "Yes, sir. Jesus is alive. He saved me, and he still saves. Every day." I shook my head and laughed under my breath. You don't know how ridiculous that sounds to someone who teaches logic for a living. I brought up starvation, disasters, the randomness of suffering. I quoted Spinoza, Russell, Hume. She didn't argue back with anger. Just scripture, calm eyes, and unwavering conviction. Sir, evolution may explain change, but not creation. Jesus gives us the why, and the after. 10 minutes passed in a whirlwind of contradiction, frustration, and something I couldn't name. I checked my watch. 6 a.m. My train would leave in 15 minutes and I still hadn't called a taxi. I grabbed my bag in a fury and headed for the door. She followed with one last sentence. Sir, I will pray to my Jesus to show you a sign that this conversation was for a reason. I turned to her sharply. Pray all you want. Nothing will happen. The universe doesn't care. She didn't flinch, only said gently,
Jesus loves even those who don't believe in him.
I laughed, waved her off, and stormed down the hallway. Outside, the sun was already burning through the haze of the morning, and the air was thick with dust and diesel. I jumped into the first auto rickshaw I saw and barked out the station name. Weaving through crowded alleys and honking streets, my thoughts raced with irritation. I was missing my connection because some religious girl wanted to play prophet. The train station came into view at 6. Should see. I threw cash at the driver and ran, but it was too late. I saw the back end of the train sliding away from the platform like a cruel joke. I shouted, waved, even ran a few steps, but it was gone. And with it, my perfect schedule, my seamless plan, my certainty. I sat on the bench, furious, heart pounding, her words playing on a loop. I will pray to my Jesus to show you a sign. Coincidence, I told myself. Stupid coincidence. But my chest felt tight. And not just from the heat. I looked up train schedules. The next option was hours away. Required 2 transfers. Added nearly a full day of travel. Still, I had no choice. I bought the ticket and waited, surrounded by chai vendors, sleeping porters, and families preparing for their journeys. Yet in that crowd, I felt utterly alone. I couldn't stop hearing her voice, her confidence, her simplicity. Her faith wasn't complicated. It was steady, unshaken, and somehow it rattled everything I thought I knew. What if I had just walked away earlier? I would have made the train, stayed on schedule, never met her, never argued, never heard that voice from her apron.
I see you, even when you doubt me, even when you mock me. I see you.
I shook my head, muttered under my breath. No, I didn't believe in divine detours, and yet, the train I missed would have changed more than my itinerary. It would have changed my eternity. I just didn't know that yet. The train I finally boarded at noon was nothing like the one I had planned for. It was older, slower, every seat filled with travelers pressed shoulder to shoulder, the air thick with spices and sweat, and the sound of crying children. It moved like it had nowhere to be. Every screeching stop pulled me further from my original timeline. My mind kept recalculating, rerouting, reshuffling connections that no longer existed. I was no longer the man who prided himself on precision. I was just another foreigner stuck in the chaos of a system I couldn't control. By the second hour, I had stopped checking my watch. By the fourth, I stopped pretending to read. All I could think about was that morning, the missed train, the look in Grace's eyes, the way she had said she would pray, not to shame me, not to win an argument, but simply because she believed Jesus still speaks, and for the first time in years, that thought unsettled me. I remembered how confident I had been, laughing off her scripture like it was a fairy tale, and now here I was, packed between strangers, barely moving, not even sure if I'd make it to the airport at all. I whispered to myself, no, this is just bad timing, no God involved. But doubt has a voice, and mine was getting louder. That night, we were still crawling through rural towns. Every time I thought we might be gaining time, the train would slow again, or stop without reason. I tried checking for flights from nearby cities, but every option was either full or too expensive to justify. I called the airline, begged them to hold the gate just in case I made it. All I got was an automated voice and a pre-recorded apology. I felt invisible, like nothing I did mattered, like I was being swallowed by some invisible hand that kept pushing me back. Was I being punished or protected? I didn't know which one terrified me more. At a station around midnight, the train stopped again, this time outside a village I couldn't even pronounce. No announcements in English, Just groans from fellow passengers and the silent understanding that we weren't moving anytime soon. So I sat there, in the darkness, watching shadows pass the window, and tried to hold myself together. That's when I heard it again, the whisper in my mind.
I never said you'd be comfortable. I said I'd be with you.
I shook my head hard, hoping exhaustion was playing tricks on me. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and tried to sleep. But all I could see was that train pulling away from the platform, and Grace saying she would pray. I wanted to hate her for making me late, but I couldn't, not anymore. The next morning, June 11th, I arrived at Praz Junction, exhausted, filthy, heart pounding with frustration. I rushed to find my next connection, only to learn it had been delayed by 6 hours due to mechanical issues. I almost screamed. I paced the platform like a man possessed, trying to find alternatives, trying to pretend I still had control. But there was nothing. No buses, no planes, no shortcuts. Just me, standing in a station I hadn't planned to be in, watching time slip through my fingers. I kept thinking, this isn't happening. This can't be happening. I had built my entire life on control, order, certainty. Now I was unraveling. I looked around, saw families praying quietly for safe travels, a child sleeping peacefully in her mother's lap, an old man reading a pocket Bible, and me, furious, pacing, cursing the universe. I told myself, they're just deluded, holding on to myths to survive discomfort. But something inside me whispered back, or maybe they know something you don't. That evening, I finally boarded my last train to Ahmedabad. It was quieter this time, fewer people, and I found a window seat alone. The sun was setting, casting a red glow over the fields and hills. I stared out in silence, watching India blur past me, and felt the weight of every unanswered question pressing into my chest. Why had I missed the first train? Why had every attempt to fix it failed? Why did Grace's voice still echo in my head?
Even delays have purpose. Even detours have meaning.
I didn't know what to believe anymore, but I knew I wasn't the same man who left Oregon. That night, I didn't sleep much. I just sat there, in the stillness of the train car, staring into the dark countryside, feeling like something bigger than me was unfolding, something I had spent my whole life denying, and I wasn't ready for what was coming next. Dawn broke on the 12th of June as the train finally pulled into Ahmedabad Junction. The sky was pale gray, the streets already stirring with movement, but I felt like I hadn't slept in years. I was running on nothing but stale coffee and fragments of reason. I had 24 minutes to reach the airport, check in, clear security, and board a flight that would decide the next chapter of my life. I grabbed my bag and darted off the platform, hailed a taxi with the urgency of a man escaping something unseen. Sardar Vallabhai Patel, International. Fast, I told the driver. He nodded without speaking, just floored the pedal and merged into the current of chaos. That is Indian traffic. Cars, buses, rickshaws, pedestrians all moving without rhythm or mercy. It felt like I was being dragged through the veins of a city that refused to make room for me. At every red light, I cursed. Every honking horn sent spikes of rage through my chest. The driver glanced at me through the mirror and said, "Festival time, sir." Many rode slow. I gritted my teeth, checked the clock. Shasan, Shabah. My flight was scheduled for 13. San Joe. We were cutting it razor thin. I thought of all the hours I'd wasted arguing with Grace, sitting on benches, pacing stations, doubting myself. This could have been avoided. This didn't have to happen. And yet, here I was breathless, braking. The taxi screeched to a halt outside the terminal at 13. Arshasi. I threw bills at the driver. Didn't even wait for change. I ran, through sliding doors, past families and security checks. Heart pounding, lungs burning. I reached the Air India counter, slammed my ID down and gasped. Flight 171. I'm booked. Ethan Cole. Let me through. The woman behind the counter didn't even look surprised. Her voice was calm. Too calm. I'm sorry, sir. Boarding closed 15 minutes ago. The aircraft is already on the tarmac. No, you don't understand. I've been traveling for 2 days. I have to be on that flight. Please, call someone. She shook her head softly. I'm afraid it's not possible. The plane is already taxiing for departure. I took a step back, legs weak, vision blurry. I turned to the departure screen. Flight 171 to London. Gate closed. That's when I heard it. A sound like thunder breaking the sky. Windows trembling. The floor beneath me shaking. People turned. Gasps echoed across the terminal. We rushed to the glass wall overlooking the runway, and then we saw it. A flash of orange and black. Fire erupting in the distance. Smoke spiraling into the clouds. An explosion. A violent bloom of heat and flame. Somebody screamed. Others cried out, falling to their knees. And I just stood there, unable to breathe. The screen updated. Breaking news. Air India flight 171 crashes. Shortly after takeoff, I watched the footage on live television as the news camera zoomed in on the wreckage. The plane was torn apart. Twisted metal scattered across a field near a medical college. Debris still burning. No confirmed survivors. The words felt surreal, like someone else's nightmare. Like fiction. But it wasn't. That was my flight. That was my seat. 14. A. I had picked it specifically weeks before. Extra legroom. I imagined myself there. Tray table up. Seatbelt fastened. Looking out the window at the moment, everything vanished. I dropped into a nearby chair not because I chose to sit, but because my knees refused to hold me. I covered my face with both hands, trying to block out what I had seen. But it was no use. I had missed the flight I had cursed for leaving without me. And now, it was gone. I should have been on that plane. I whispered those words again and again. I should have been on that plane. Around me, travelers prayed out loud, clutched phones, called loved ones. But I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I was locked in that moment. And then I heard her voice, not in the terminal, but in my mind. Grace, standing in the hotel room, eyes steady, voice calm. I will pray to my Jesus to show you a sign.
I spared you, not by chance, but by purpose. You missed the flight because you needed to live.
I stared at the scrolling headline, 242 passengers, 0 confirmed survivors. Emergency crews still searching. The thought made me sick. I had debated miracles for decades, dismissed them, deconstructed them. Now I was living in one, not because I deserved it, not because I earned it, but because someone prayed. Someone believed even when I didn't. I looked down at my hands shaking, dry, empty, and for the first time in my life, I whispered something I never thought I would. Thank you, Jesus. Not with full understanding, not with certainty, but with awe, because I had stared into the mouth of death and walked away untouched. There was no logic for that, no science, only grace. That night, I checked into a small hotel not far from the airport. The receptionist spoke softly, almost like he knew I had just come from a battlefield. The room was plain, dimly lit, a small window overlooking a busy intersection, but to me it felt like a bunker, like a place where the walls could finally close in and the world would stop spinning. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, bag still unopened, shoes still on, unable to process the weight of what had just happened. My phone buzzed again and again, notifications from news outlets, emails from colleagues, messages from my sister back home asking if I was okay. I didn't answer any of them. I couldn't. I just stared at the screen, the same image replaying across every platform, flames rising from twisted steel, headlines screaming about tragedy, shock, national mourning. But I wasn't mourning. I was breathing, and I didn't know what to do with that. I had spent my whole life rejecting the idea that anything had purpose, that anyone was watching, that any of this meant more than pure randomness. But that plane didn't explode randomly. It exploded after I missed it by minutes. And I missed it because of a girl with a prayer, because of words I had laughed at, because of a conversation I never wanted. I pressed my palms to my face, hard, as if I could wipe away the thoughts. But they were everywhere. They were in the hum of the air conditioner, in the distant honk of traffic, in the silence between my breaths. I whispered into that silence, "Is this what a sign looks like? Or was it just coincidence? Again. I had asked that question hundreds of times in my lectures, always with a smug grin, always sure of the answer. Coincidence. Always coincidence. But this time, the word felt weak, like a worn-out excuse. This didn't feel like randomness. This felt intentional. I got up, opened my suitcase, took out the leather folder that held my travel documents, and looked at the printed boarding pass that now felt like a death sentence. I escaped. 14A. It was real. I had booked it. I should have been gone. I sat down again, looked out the window, and let my mind wander back through everything the way Grace had spoken. Not to argue, not to win, but with gentleness. The way she didn't flinch when I mocked her. The way she said she would pray not for herself, but for me.
He heard her prayer. Long before you knew you needed one, I held back time for you.
I covered my ears, not because I didn't want to hear it, but because part of me did, and that scared me. All my life, I had leaned on intellect, on evidence, on cold, hard logic. But now, I was shaking because of a whisper, and somehow, that whisper felt more real than any argument I'd ever won. I stood by the window, looked out at the hazy skyline of Ahmedabad, and I felt something crack in my chest. Not pain, not fear, something deeper. Surrender. I whispered again, quieter this time. If this was you, why me? Why save me? I wasn't worthy. I didn't believe. I had spent my life discrediting everything you stood for. And then I heard it again.
I don't save the worthy. I save the willing. You were lost, but never forgotten.
I sank to my knees, not because I had planned to, but because my body couldn't carry the weight anymore. My hands trembled. Tears burned my eyes, not from grief, but from something I didn't know how to name. Gratitude, maybe, or awakening. I don't know how long I stayed like that, but at some point, I whispered something I had never said in my life. Jesus, if you're real, I'm listening. I don't understand, but I'm listening. And in that moment, the room didn't change. The lights didn't flicker. There was no thunder or miracle, but something inside me shifted. Something small, but unstoppable. Faith, not the kind that comes from answers, but the kind that begins with a question. What if you're really there? What if I was spared for something more? What if Grace's prayer reached heaven, and heaven answered? I didn't have a theology, or a verse to quote, or a plan. All I had was a quiet voice inside whispering,
"This is not the end of your questions. It's the start of your story."
And that was enough. I lay down on the bed, still fully dressed, eyes wide open, heart pounding. I didn't sleep, but I didn't need to, because something had awakened, and for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't afraid to say maybe there's more. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this was never about the answers. Maybe it was always about the invitation. It's been weeks since that day, but in some ways, it still feels like yesterday. People ask me how I'm doing. They say I must feel lucky that I cheated death, that I have a second chance, but it doesn't feel like luck. It feels like grace, and I don't say that lightly. Grace is a word I once dismissed as religious fluff, a poetic way to explain survival. But now, it's the only word that fits. Because what happened to me wasn't just survival. It was interruption. It was a divine pause, one I didn't ask for, one I didn't want, but one that shook the foundation I had built my entire identity on. I think about it every day. Not just the crash, but the question that came after. Why am I still here? What do you do when everything you believe collapses in the space of a headline? What do you do when the very system you trusted, your intellect, your control, your logic, can't explain the fact that you're breathing when you shouldn't be? What do you say when the only reason you're alive is because someone prayed for you while you laughed in their face? I keep coming back to that moment in the hotel room, Grace handing me my suit, that faint voice from her apron, that scripture echoing like a ripple in still water. And then I think of the plane. Flight 171, engines rising. Then silence. Then fire. I can't stop asking the question. What if she hadn't spoken? What if she had kept quiet, just handed me the suit and left? What if I had walked away faster? What if I'd made that train? I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be speaking to you, and you wouldn't be hearing this. Maybe that's why I survived. Not just to live, but to tell you something, to ask you something. Do you believe in coincidences? Or do you believe in purpose? Do you believe that the moments that interrupt your plans could actually be the very moments that save you? I don't share this because I need you to agree with me. I share this because I need you to consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, the interruptions in your life are not the universe working against you. Maybe they're God working for you in ways you don't yet see.
I am not the God of convenience. I am the God of redemption. I don't ruin plans. I rescue people.
I used to scoff at that idea. Now I live because of it. And I can't stay silent. Because maybe someone out there is where I was confident in their logic, secure in their schedule, blind to their fragility. Maybe someone is one conversation away from a sign they didn't know they needed, or one prayer away from a miracle they don't yet believe in. I don't know where you stand with faith. Maybe you're skeptical. Maybe you've walked away. Maybe you've been hurt by people who claim to speak for God. But let me tell you this, the God I encountered didn't shout, didn't condemn, didn't demand. He waited, patiently, in love, even when I denied him.
I have never needed your permission to love you, but I waited for your yes, because I desire your heart.
That's what broke me. Not fear. Love. Unearned. Unshakable. Undeserved. And now, I see interruptions differently. Now, when something delays me, I pause. Now, when a plan falls apart, I listen. Now, when someone brings up Jesus, I don't roll my eyes. I lean in. Because I know what it feels like to be held back from disaster by a God I didn't believe in because someone else did. Maybe you've never had an experience like that. Or maybe you have, but you dismissed it. Maybe there was a car crash you narrowly missed, a diagnosis that turned out clean, a decision you avoided for no clear reason. Coincidence? Right. Or maybe not. Maybe that was your grace moment. Maybe that was someone praying when you didn't know. Or maybe that was Jesus, whispering.
I've been here all along. You just never looked.
So I'm asking you, whoever you are, wherever you're reading this, what if you're not alone? What if the delays in your life are really invitations? What if the interruptions are rescue missions? And what if the question you've been avoiding is the only one that actually matters? What if Jesus is real? Not religion, not rules, not guilt or shame, but the person of Jesus, the one who sees you, the one who loves you, the one who died to give you a life you didn't earn. What if he's not asking you to understand everything? What if he's just asking you to stop running? That's what I'm learning. Faith isn't the absence of doubt. It's the decision to listen when the doubt doesn't satisfy. It's the courage to ask, could there be more? Could there be someone who sees the whole picture? Even when I only see pieces. I don't have all the answers, not even close. But I've stopped pretending that means I have none. Because the most important truth I've ever encountered didn't come from a textbook or a lecture hall. It came from a whispered prayer and a missed train, and it saved my life. Maybe you're watching this and something inside you is stirring. Maybe it's a memory, a moment, a near miss you still can't explain. Or maybe you're angry, skeptical, just like I was, and you're thinking, this is just another emotional story trying to push religion. But what if it's not? What if this isn't about religion at all? What if this is about rescue? Because I didn't come here to preach to you. I came to tell you the truth, that I should be dead. That logic didn't save me. That planning failed me. And that prayer found me, even when I wasn't looking, even when I didn't believe. And maybe right now, you're in your own delay. Maybe something isn't going the way you planned. You think it's a setback, but maybe it's a setup. Maybe this video is not on your screen by accident. Maybe this is your grace moment. So I want to ask you, what if Jesus is real? And what if he's been trying to reach you for a long time? Not to shame you, not to control you, but to rescue you, restore you, and love you. If any part of this story hit you, if even a line made you pause, I want to hear about it. Leave a comment. Tell me if you've ever experienced something too precise to be random. And if you've been wrestling with faith, let this be a safe place to start asking. You don't have to have it all figured out. I sure didn't. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Because maybe the very thing they've been running from is the only thing that can save them. And if you want to walk this journey with us, to hear more stories like this, stories of faith, survival, transformation, subscribe, not because it helps the algorithm, but because you never know when someone's faith will start because they heard yours. We're not just telling stories here, we're witnessing signs, and maybe this is yours.
I still call to the lost, not to remind them they are lost, but to show them the way home.
Before you scroll away, I just want to say one last thing. This channel isn't here to convince you of anything. It's here to walk with you through everything. Because faith isn't just found in churches, it's found in waiting rooms, missed flights, quiet hotel rooms, and sometimes in stories like this. If you're someone who's been wondering where God is in your delays, in your disappointments, in the chaos of life, you're not alone. We're building a space here where it's okay to question, okay to cry, okay to not have the answers, but still believe there's something more. So if that's you, join us. Click subscribe, not just to follow a channel, but to become part of a family of people who have seen too much to call it coincidence, a family of people who still believe that even one prayer can change everything. And if you've made it this far in the video, I want to ask you directly, what moment in your life made you question everything? What sign did you almost miss? Let us know in the comments. Your story matters here, and it might be the very thing someone else needs to read today. So share this video, leave your testimony, and help us fill the internet with more than noise. Let's fill it with hope. We'll see you in the next one. And until then, keep your eyes open, because maybe, just maybe, the next delay in your life is actually a miracle in disguise.